Good morning, Nandita. I am Y. Kumar, Contract Assistant Professor, Department of Botany. Now I would like to invite today's plenary session keynote speaker, Dr. S. Madhurama Madam, Chief Scientist, IICT. Please come out to the session and after the speech. May I request Similar Director and Dean Faculty of Science, Professor Pushpa Chandra, please come over to and after. And I would like to invite to the plenary session chairperson, Dr. P. Rajin Madam, Adjunct Professor, Department of Chemistry. Now I would like to invite reporter of this plenary session, Dr. Ramakrishnan, Department of Botany. Okay. Now I request Kishore Kumar, please present a bouquet to our keynote speaker, Dr. Madhurama Madam.
Oh my God. Thank you. Thank you so much. Beautiful.
Now I request Director of India, Professor Pushpa Chandra Madam, for further proceedings.
Yeah, very good morning, everyone. It's my privilege to welcome you once again, Dr. Madhurama Garu, Chief Scientist from Indian Institute of Technology, IIT, Hyderabad. I also University, who is going to be the speaker of our graduation session, who came from Bombay, who is the scientist in Indian Institute of Geoorganism. I will inform you now. And I also vacation from Dr. Market Prasad, who is also a professor in the Kerala University. Welcome you, Market for this delivery session. And I welcome Dr. Rajesh Shashwati and all other universities, delegates, participants, my colleagues. Very good morning to you all. And as director of seminar, national seminar, I extend you a very warm welcome. It is my great privilege, pleasure to welcome you all to Dr. B.R. Ambedkar Government University, the first government university for this spectacular event. That is, we have started our national seminar yesterday, that is the national seminar. Yesterday we had the inaugural session followed by the technical session. One plenary session was also there. Today we have the second plenary session. I welcome you all for this plenary session. On behalf of the university and on my own behalf, as a director of the seminar, I extend a warm welcome to you all. Madam, I also delighted to inform you that the university has completed 40 years of its existence, serving the higher education in the country. And recently we have celebrated the day, that is 26th of August. So 40 years ago, the university has served the nation. And so we're very much honored by the presence of Dr. Madhurama on this daily session. Madam, thank you very much for accepting our invitation and sharing your knowledge with our participants. I just to brief what has happened, what are the objectives of the seminar. Actually, the main aim of the seminar is to provide a platform for the discussions of interdisciplinary issues on science and technology relevant to the system, compounds of biology, chemistry, material scientists, physicists, pharmacists, computer scientists and technologists with both academic and industrial backgrounds made the seminar focus on methodological development of science and technology for sustainable development in all aspects of the society. The specific objectives of the seminar are to discuss and deliberate on the issues of latest trends in science and technology, innovations and new developments in science and technology for sustainable development, environmental balance and social progress, good health and well-being, clean water and sanitation, protection of biodiversity and resources, role of ICT in open and distance learning. But this main theme has been divided into 8 sub-themes. They include life sciences, chemical and pharmaceutical sciences, material sciences, electronics and communications, mathematical sciences, computer science and technology, earth and environmental sciences, innovations of technology in ODM. So this is very briefly about the themes and sub-themes of the seminar. And yesterday we had one session after the inauguration, then followed by the technical sessions now. Now we are very fortunate enough to have you as the speaker of today. That is concluding the next seminar. Thank you. Thanks for coming and delivering address. Thank you very much. Yeah. Did introduce yesterday? Yeah. So before we hear Madam's speech, I request Dr. Randy to introduce our speaker today. Thank you. Thank you very much, Madam. Thank you very much, Madam. Plenary session of day 2. Thank you. Now, I have a very pleasant duty of introducing today's plenary session 2 speaker, Dr. Sunkara Manoramagaru, Chief Scientist, Nanomaterials Laboratory, CSIR, and Hyderabad. Dr. Manorama is one of the most distinguished chief scientists of our city, and she is a fellow of Pune University, Maharashtra. Her research interest is mainly in material science that includes design and development of nanomaterials for application in sensor, catalysis, including photocatalysis, photovoltaic devices, fabrication of prototype devices, and studying the performance characteristics. She has successfully developed surface functionalized nanostructure magnetically recoverable catalyst for hydrogenation and for several other reactions also. Not only she has excelled in research, but she is also a life member of MRSI, Indian Ceramic Society, and Indian Crystallographic Society, Indian Women Scientists Association. And she is visiting the faculty of engineering at Japan. She also received a number of awards, to mention few. Commonwealth Fellowship for Physics by the Association of Commonwealth, UK. Winner of R&D Award for the best research work on gas sensors by NSPTS in 1996. CSIR Foundation Day, Best Women Scientist. And been selected for, and Australian Leadership Award, Award Fellow, and then Fellow Andhra Pradesh Academy of Sciences, and she has co-seeded MCare 2012 Florida US, ACS Membership Award she got, and Sita Mahalakshmi Endowment Picture of that's very few I'm mentioning. Nominated and winner of Professor Rudolph A. Marcus Award, and he is the Nobel laureate. So she deserves
Thank you, thank you.
Apart from his accolades, she has supervised and acted as she has supervised 13 PhDs in chemistry and 2 in physics, and acted as
coordinator for advanced functional materials. And apart from this, also she has a lot of publications, patents, books, chapter series written, and has given intellectual funds. To mention 127 publications having in peer-reviewed journals, 4 patents, 4 book chapters, 2 popular articles, and 1 review article. She has done more than 85 invited lectures and plenary talks, which are put together for all the friends. So I feel privileged to invite her to deliver today's lecture on material science and engineering for sustainable development. Thank you.
Good morning to all, and thank you, Pushpa Madam, for having me again here. It's a little embarrassing to speak the same thing again and again, but it's always a new place and a new meeting, so I'll try to change whatever. And then we have many new invitees or friends, so I thought much more informal talk. So I've given the title. Good morning to all, and thank you, Pushpa Madam, for having me again here. It's a little embarrassing to speak the same thing again, but it's always a new place and a new meeting, so I'll try to change whatever. And then we have many. I have to listen to my own voice. That you can mute it now. So I have given the title as Material Science and Engineering towards Sustainable Development. As Dr. Pushpa Madam and Dr. Rajni also already mentioned my background, I basically come with a physics graduation, a post-graduation, a PhD. But then I am presently in a chemistry lab. So to make my place there, I call myself a material scientist. Because chemistry people don't like it. Whatever we do, all said and done, all things being equal, there's nothing like separate departments to have kind of an integration. There are a lot of reasons for that. We say that all the Nobel Prizes in chemistry are being taken by this. So there are many reasons. So to make a place, that's not the main reason, but basically I had to work for the institute. So my research work has to be in line with the goals of the institute. So basically, I choose myself to developing materials for the chemical applications. So start off in a very humble way in trying to make materials for chemical sciences. Because I didn't have much equipment, but over the last 20 years, now I have a full-fledged laboratory where I have all the synthesis, characterization, all the major characteristics for material science. So now I can actually you tell me the application I can make the material. It's basically I design the material. So that's the reason why I have given broad title as basically material science and engineering can go a long way towards sustainable development. In terms of making the materials, the synthesis procedures, you can try to have more environmental friendly, and times you don't contribute to the environmental pollution, things like that. So basically, it goes a long way towards sustainable development. So I just try to give a couple of examples and then try to say how material science can go a long way in trying to attain all the goals, and which Dr. Gupta Madam already mentioned the different areas. So when you say material science itself, it doesn't mean a chemical substance or a physical object or a living species. It covers all. So that's why it's very highly interdisciplinary. Same material which can be used for a device application can also be used for biological applications. There's no reason why it cannot. And we have proved that. The same, say, iron oxide or tin dioxide has gone a long way, or the iron oxide for that matter. It's done a lot of jobs in, say, in MRI contrast agents for drug delivery and things like that. So there is no demarcation that this material will work only for a particular subject. It's totally cross-disciplinary. So that makes it more beautiful, the subject, and more interesting. Always you have to learn new things. And of course, I can't give the excuse that I am a physicist, so I can't understand biology. But if I have to make an application, biology, I have to understand biology. And chemistry is something which we have to understand the basics, the pH or concentration or temperature, things like that. So there's no, anybody and everybody can participate. And that's the reason why I have more chemistry, being a chemistry lab, I have more chemistry PhD students. So even though I am a physicist, Osmania University was very generous. They gave me guideship for chemistry. So I have 30 PhDs in chemistry students, 22 PhDs, and engineering students as well. Okay, let's go further. So that's what I thought I first would say why I'm talking about taking this topic. What is material science and engineering? First of all, what do you mean by material science and engineering? Then the basic is when you define a material, you have to understand what the structure and the property. Then I'll go a little further. Okay. So first of all, this is just historical. The next first 10 to 2 slides, I think are boring, but that will give you that will put the lecture in its perspective. First of all, the history of mankind is basically the human societies are closely related to materials. So civilizations were based depending on their level of development, like Stone Age, Bronze Age, Iron Age, and so on. And presently, and they can be named accordingly. Today, we are in what I call designer materials. Okay. And what is material science? Material science is basically trying to understand the structure and the property. And this I will elaborate a little further in the next slides. And engineering is making these materials on the basis of the structure of information.
పాపం వార్డెన్ లా వాళ్ళు రెగ్యులర్ కాలేజీ టీచర్స్ అంతా 24 అందుబాటులో ఉన్నారు. ఉన్న క్లర్క్లే
అందరినీ మ్యూట్ చేసేస్తుంది.
So, on the basis of these structure property correlations, we can actually design or engineer the structure of the material to obtain the desired property. That is material science and engineering. So nowadays, most of the departments are not named as just material science. You always have MSE, all the IITs abroad, anywhere also. You don't have material science departments, material science and engineering, because understanding and then making the materials is the complete job. So, and first of all, why do you want to make better and better materials? Are we not satisfied with the material that we have? Because previously people had whatever was available to them, they were making materials. But now we're trying to make better and better materials. And why do we need to do that? We really need to do research in material science question. And of course, it needs to, because the final goal of designing material is trying to make our lives more comfortable, living more comfortable. See, now we are in a comfortable AC room. What more do you want? You have a fantastic car to move around and you have a Wi-Fi and all that. But still you are thinking of new materials. Why? Because you want better performing materials, more efficient materials, and more energy efficient, more materials, anything, and still better. Say now you have an AC which is operating at 70 degrees. So maybe you want to say, make it more intelligent. Once it reaches this temperature, it should go off so they can save power, or something which is going to consume lesser amount of power, and things like that. So our demands keep on increasing. As our demands keep on increasing, you have to come out with better and better materials. Devices also better materials. So that means that is a major thing, that is development of technologies. Finally, the forerunner is comfortable living. You want to go fast, you want to go faster. It's the human activity is actually making you to come out with better and better materials. So that's what. Okay, so I told you the structure and the property which is going to be the bottom line. So what is structure? Structure is basically is how the atoms are arranged. Okay, it is subatomic, microscopic, macroscopic. So first of all, in the atomic scale, how they're arranged, microscopically, how they get rearranged, and then the secondary structures, macroscopic. And these structures will give you properties. Now, I just elaborated a few examples. And the third one would be processing and performance. So structure, property, processing, and performance. These are the four kind of corners. Okay, and this is how we determine the tetrahedron. Just make it or something. So, screen. So this is basically a total description of material science and engineering. You have the synthesis, you have the structure characterization, you have the properties, and the last leg on the right-hand side is basically modeling and simulation. So this has come up new in the sense the last 10-15 years. Because why it has become very important is you are saying that the structure determines the property, and that property will give you the performance. But unless you take the material, unless you study the properties, you don't know what you're going to come up with. So you waste a lot of time in synthesizing, evaluating, and then trying to use it for application. Modeling and simulation will solve at least your job partially, because by modeling and simulation, you can actually predict what particular material structure will give you a particular property. So this is going in a long way now. So since now we have much better computation facilities, and people are now well aware of all these things, you can predict that, okay, if I arrange the atoms in a particular manner, I can get these properties. So it takes a lot of your experimental time. So it's also become a very major part of research and in the research and development, modeling and simulation. So this is what it is. I just put them as four corners. And so when you talk about designer materials, you can have intelligent materials. What do you mean intelligent materials? The materials which respond, talk to you, understand you, and change the properties. So property changing materials, energy exchanging materials, functional materials, and so on. You can have many, many such subdivisions. Okay. Now let's start at the very beginning. I'm just trying to, because there are some students around, and then I want to impress on you how the structure is going to determine the property. So I just run through all this. I don't want to teach you what the primary bonds are, but a simple thing like an ionic and a covalent metallic bond. It's the bond energy which gives you the strength, and that gives you so many properties. So we have the ionic bond here. So we know also sodium chloride and these kind of materials are hard materials. They're electrically insulating, ionic conductors, and so on. Then you have covalent bonding, where there is sharing of electrons. So what are the numbers? I just rushed through all of them, what the bother. Then you have a metallic bond. What is it, metallic bond? These are metals. Here the electrons are distributed all over the metal, and the electrons are very free. So because of which conductivity is very high. The conductivity is very high, and all metals have a metallic luster, a shine. The shine is because of all the sea of electrons which are spread over, not confined in any particular atom, but over the whole material. So just by this, what do we understand? Then you have, because of its primary bonds, ionic and covalent bonds have very high bond energy, 400 to 500 kilojoules per mole. This high bond energy makes it ionic and covalent with very high melting point, high strength, hardness. Diamond is the hardest material. And similarly, the electrons are tightly bound to the atom, and they are generally poor conductors of heat electricity. They are brittle in nature, and so most of the ceramics, they exhibit these properties. Going next, you have what are called van der Waals forces, which are very, very weak. And so you have graphite and graphene, which are actually sliding materials. So this is, don't bother about all this, I just rushed through, don't bother about all this. So there's a van der Waals bond. They make them slide over each other, so they're very good they're used a lot, especially because of the electrical conductivity also, and because of sliding, they're used for lubricating property. Okay. Similarly, hydrogen bond. See the strength of the hydrogen bond. There you have hundreds of kilojoules. Here you have 10 to 50 kilojoules. Okay. which is the turning thing which I want to tell you. Now from the bottom I have a picture on the right hand side where you have on the top. These are very transparent. Okay, all three are made of the same material, aluminum oxide, A2O3. The top one is, the top picture shows you transparent balls. The middle one is kind of a translucent, less transparent, and the bottom one is opaque. Now, what is the difference between the three? I'm telling you all three of them are aluminum oxide. But the arrangement of the atoms of aluminum oxide, or the molecule of aluminum oxide, is giving the transparency. These are highly crystalline materials, well arranged, long range order, makes it transparent. Whereas the middle one, it has got some amount of polycrystallinity, which makes it opaque, less transparent. And the bottom one is just particles of aluminum oxide which are made into balls, totally amorphous. Not amorphous, we can say, very small particles, but not long range order. So, what is it that what you can observe there is simply the arrangement of atoms has changed the optical property of the material. Just an example to show that the structure, the property can actually change the final applications. So you can have the first ones for transparent windows, and for the other ones which are going to be much more cheaper materials will be the opaque aluminum oxide, which you want to use it for many other mundane applications. So just a few examples. I don't bother about all these are numbers that you should know because we tend to forget these numbers. Just to give you a perspective. So you are in the visible region where you are and what is the wavelength of the electrons. This is this for students. You don't have to go to. Okay. Now what I want to say is, when I said that you have material science and engineering for sustainable development, we can actually make these materials by arranging the atoms atom by atom. And that's where nanotechnology comes up. Because nanotechnology is basically trying to tailor the property of the material by arranging the atoms at the scale of the atom and the molecule. So if you want to make it sustainable, your emphasis should be on low temperature synthesis routes, preferably room temperature. Now, somebody can ask this question, is it possible? Can you really make these materials at room temperature? Because we know ceramic materials, aluminum oxide or tin dioxide, they are normally starting with the chemical precursors, then you make it to hydroxide, and then you will calcine it at much higher temperature, 500 or 600, 10,000, some hard materials, 20,000, 3,000 degrees. But the question is, do we really need these temperatures? So then you can actually go back to nature and learn from nature. See, you have these water diatoms and plants, these animals, sea creatures. You have the corals. What are the corals? They're basically calcium carbonate. Those creatures make calcium carbonate beautiful structure, hierarchical structure at room temperature in seawater without any furnace or without any high temperatures. If these animals make it to those conditions, why can't we? So that gives a new subject that is called biomimicry, learning from nature. There must be something which is instigating that chemical reaction and getting those beautiful structures which are having all the properties. Ceramic material, very hard, very well arranged. Similarly, our bone and teeth. Okay, our teeth are very hard, our bones are not so hard, but the material of construction is the same. What is it that makes that property different? It's basically arrangement. The arrangement of the atoms actually gives you the final application or the property which is existing. So basically, nanotechnology has given us that you arrange these atoms. And of course, if you want it to be sustainable, it has to be low temperature, preferably room temperature. Then, since they are nano-sized particles, when you make these particles, it's very difficult to see them with the naked eye. So you have a lot of microscopes and all that. But obviously, you can't go to a microscope and the material. Unit synthesis is difficult. So we have to reduce the loss of unit synthesis. So there are some tricks for that. So that's where hierarchical structures come. What is hierarchy? You know what hierarchy is, right? Father, son, grandfather, great-grandfather, that kind of a thing. So hierarchical structures are basically arranged atoms in, say, in the microscopic scale, then you make it macroscopic scale, and then you go to the large scale. So you can actually start in the solution, in the atomic scale, molecular scale, and build those structures in the reactor itself under those conditions. So finally, there is a very big structure and it will be very easy for us to view them at room under normal conditions. You don't have to use an atomic microscope or an electron microscope, always. So these hierarchical structures help you to synthesize particles or materials by using simple chemical rules. That is, you control the pH, temperature, time. These are all the parameters that you have in the laboratory. And of course, the thing is, it's not just laboratory. I can't just synthesize 1 gram and 2 grams and say that I make the material. To make it application oriented, it has to be tons of material, kgs and tons. So upscaling also is a major issue. And that's where the engineering people come to that and help us, because we can do it in the laboratory in the beaker, but engineers have to put in the chemical engineering perspective and upscale it. And of course, you can make hybrids, you can make composites. Those are all part of the nanotechnology. Because when you say nanomaterial, it need not be the whole structure of the nano. There will be just 1 or 2% of nanomaterial into maybe a polymer or maybe a resin or a ceramic, which is cheap. But that very 1 or 2% of nanomaterials improves the total problem. The simplest example is, suppose you want to have iron, you want to increase the strength of steel, they introduce carbon. The 1% carbon, 2% carbon. But the size of the carbon and carbon particle, if it is nanoscience, then the property is enhanced. Actually, you can do this small experiment in the laboratory. Make 1%, 2%, make 10 nanometer particle size or 15 nanometer 100, and see how the property is. So you can take 1% of the material, total material steel, carbon, and see how the property is. Similarly, you can be conducting polymers. Polymers is supposed to be insulated. So you can introduce some amount of conducting material. You can make it conducting polymers. Okay? Because the problem is polymers are flexible, but they're insulated. So if you want to get both the advantages, you can make conducting polymers. And there are many such things. Then you have carbon-made, say, carbon fibers, graphene or say, carbon fibers, and all those things. Those are very expensive to make. But you can use cheap material. You can put them into wood or wood powder or resin or polymer or maybe ceramic. And you use the mechanical strength. So when you say nanomaterials, need not be that you are talking about tons and tons of making nanomaterials. You can make composites, hybrids, and get the advantages that you're looking for. Then, what is your functionalization? Now, when you make nanoparticles and you want to use them for an application, you need to chemically modify it. Suppose I'm talking about biological application. Okay, you know the kids have nanoparticles put into a human body or a plant body. So I have to suitably outer charge or whatever we call charge or functionality. It has to be biocompatible. So you tend to put in some carbonates or some containing materials or sulfur-containing materials on the surface. The nanoparticle is an inorganic nanoparticle, but the surface functionalization makes it in different applications. It can be used in chemical applications, it can be used in sensors, it can be used in biological applications. So there's a few examples. Whatever I told you, this is an example that we have in the laboratory. The first one is about tin dioxide. The problem we faced here was we could make nanoparticles. Under the electron microscope, we could see the nanoparticles. But the problem is when the student was synthesizing it and she's washing it, half the material is to go in the water because you cannot see the naked eye. Then there was a requirement that this problem has to be solved. So these nanoparticles were allowed to, we were trying to minimize and eliminate the loss. And of course, we have to keep the advantages and nano characteristics. The size is very, very important. And of course, the functionality, the low temperature, all these things. So what was the trick that we used? This is, I have just given you the title, because this was a sojourn that became a way of life, design and materials for design applications. Because it was a problem which came to me. We're trying to solve the problem. In the process, now we have come up with different methods in trying to make these hierarchical structures. So these, the first blue picture at the top, we had a lot of tin dioxide nanoparticles, which were very difficult to be separated from the mixture of the reaction mixture. So what the student tried was, can we use glucose? Glucose is a very common chemical. So that glucose was actually attaching the 2 to 5 nanometer size particles into a structure which is about say 200 or 300 nanometers. And then you don't lose the material. This was all done in situ. So you can control the pH, the temperature, the concentration, and see the bottom picture. You can see that we can get large quantities of these 200 to 300 nanometer size nanospheres, which are typically much bigger than the individual nanoparticles. The advantage here is you don't really have to use an electron microscope to observe it. You can use it with your see with the naked eye. Secondly, you're not losing the material. Third is they still maintain the nano character because individually, if you see the individual picture, it's this one. They have the 2 to 5 nanometer size particles. And advantage to us, between particles there's a lot of space. So that space is being used for, say, energy applications, catalytic applications, and it is multifunctional. Not only one application, it is for all applications. So this is just one example. Okay, so there I have shown that it is working very well for as a gas sensor for detecting some hydrogen and carbon monoxide. And the same material, it could also be tried for photocatalytic applications. So we did photocatalytic applications also. So this was the first example. And the beauty is, once the reaction is over, you just wash the material, use it again. So it's reusable also. It's not just use and throw. So about 5 times it will go. Okay. Then we went further with this kind of we were happy with those results. We said, okay, it worked for tin dioxide, it is going to work for other oxides. So we tried zinc oxide, we could make hierarchical structures. Here actually the hierarchy is basically zinc oxide tries to form hexagonal structures. And we could at a different stage of the reaction, when we stop the reaction, you see these hexagons, they arrange themselves one over the other, like coins, one over the other, and they end up with like long rods. And these rods become finally flower-like structures. So basically the hierarchy is maintained. Okay. Then we tried for other oxides. Indium oxide is one, where here the particles were arranged such that you could form sheets, and all the sheets were stacked together to form big cubes. In all of this, the commonality is that you still have the nano-sized particles, which gives you the application. Okay, thank you. Okay, see here. So these are the kind of nanoparticles that are arranged in the form of cubes. So the final structure is like very large size things, so you don't lose the material. And the advantage is, of course, you have a porous structure. So a lot of chemical reactions are possible, and they maintain the structure even after repeated use. Okay, so we have tried to understand how these, because we have to understand, is it just a fluke or can you repeat it? So we have to understand the mechanism, how these things assemble into these kind of superstructures and hierarchical structures. So just put it kind of as a picture here. And the controlling factors are simply time, pH, and the solvents. Okay, so we could make hierarchical indium oxide. So what we went further down here, you can see we have, I told you that we established our facilities now. We have the electron microscope in the laboratory, so we could check the reaction at different stages and see how the particles form sheets and the sheets form cubes at different stages. So we have that. So we could propose the mechanism not only for this oxide. These are all very generic. It's not just for this oxide. You can do the same thing for all the oxides. And then, of course, the application, after doing all this, does it really work better than the existing material? And yes, of course, we proved it for sensing, for catalysis. Similarly, the same indium oxide, we wanted to make it like spherical structures, porous structures. So you can see these brown pictures are all the, we have a kind of pattern representation. The inner ones are the real pictures. So we try to understand how these particles grow. So some of the growth mechanisms show that these particles assemble themselves as spheres, and they're solid spheres. And as the time increases, the nanoparticles grow at the expense of the other particles, and so it becomes a hollow on the top. So these are called as Kirkendall effect and things like that. So it's not just pictures, but the chemistry behind it and why they get these preferred orientations are very, very important to understand. So those are all a part of the PhD students, so they get published in journals. So there you get very proper hollow structures. The advantage here is these hollow structures can be used for a lot of applications, including drug delivery, things like that. Drug delivery, even for catalytic holding in the material or things like that. Okay. This is also another zinc oxide nanoparticles. We got different hierarchical structures. Like I told you, they form slabs, hexagonal slabs, one over the other, and they assemble to form finally rods, and if they are pointed on the ends, they become like spindles shape structures. So these are the real pictures here. I don't know if you can see them clearly. And these particles finally arrange themselves like flowers. The final hierarchical structure is hexagons as rods, rods as rods to spindles, and spindles to flowers like that. The middle one you can see is a complete flower here. So the picture we could do it because we could stop the reaction at different stages and see how it is moving, progressing. So that's what it is. Here you can see the, of course, characterizations to prove the structure and the morphology. And here you can see actually the rods. These rods become arranged, they arrange. These are the previous ones, the hexagonal, like coins, they arrange one over the other. So depending on the reaction parameters, growth direction, and there's a lot of orientation in this. Why do the rods go only in one particular direction? So we have to give an explanation for that. Is the 100 phase or the 111 phase, which is preferred orientation. So all that is the physics behind it, but finally we can get the hierarchical structure. So that was the main aim on designing these materials. So now that we have established the different methodologies for obtaining these materials, we have proven that these materials can be used for a lot of applications. Here you can see the hollow structures. Then another major area, now moving towards sustainable development. When you say these materials, one I said was trying to synthesize these materials at as low room temperature as possible in large quantities, not losing the material. And of course, can these materials be used for applications like for solar cells or batteries and things like that? So solar cells is one thing where you can talk about photocatalysis applications. Photocatalysis, everybody talks about say TiO2, which has got a band gap in the UV region. But UV is a very small percentage of the solar spectrum. So we're trying to make materials like hierarchical structures. Here, the hierarchy is not just particles, it is the phase. Suppose you have an anatase TiO2 and a brucite TiO2 and a rutile TiO2. If you make the hierarchical structures of these kind of different phases, we can get the functioning of these materials in the visible light. So that was the goal, and we are trying to tune the band gap. Band gap is something we as physicists we know that band gap cannot change. So we know the band gap of silicon 1.1 and germanium 0.8, but you cannot. But by changing by making these kind of hierarchical structures, we can actually play with the band gap. So those materials which are not functioning in the visible region, we can make them work in the visible region also. And of course, the advantage here is when you make these kind of stacked heterostructures, you also reduce the recombination. Recombination is basically when you shine light and you create electron hole pairs, the first probability is they recombine. But if they recombine, you don't get the electron and holes for the purpose that you are making it for solar cells. So that's the reason why you have to reduce the recombination property. And for these kind of heterostructures, actually are advantages. That is, once you create the electron hole pairs, once created, immediately they are, because of the internal potential, they are dragged far from each other, and you prevent their recombination. So that's kind of artificially you reduce the recombination and improve the efficiency of the photocatalysis. So that's one, the same I talked about the zinc oxide particles, especially when you make hierarchical heterostructure, you get these band gap alignments, which are very advantageous for visible light photocatalysis. So, and a lot of optoelectronic properties, because the same TiO2, the same zinc oxide can be used even in solar cells, especially dye-resistant solar cells. We are talking about TiO2 with a dye. So, if you can actually absorb the visible light even using these complete nanoparticles by themselves, you don't need to have an additional dye, because dye becomes an additional thing and it degrades and it's toxic and many other things. So, we are trying to make materials even for the dye-resistant solar cells. So here these are the materials that were tried out. The second, of course, was moving forward. We were trying to make composites, like I told you, hybrids, composites. Here you have the tin dioxide particles, but you have graphene oxide or graphene. Graphene oxide is quite conducting. So if you want to make a conducting material with an insulating material and try to make a composite, the advantage is that you can improve the conductivity and so hence the performance. But additionally, what you observed was the moment you make these graphene oxide sheets, because like sheets, these nanoparticles go and assemble themselves on it. I don't know if the picture is clear or not, but you can see that they have arranged, the particles have arranged them automatically into planar structure. So these kind of hierarchical structures actually gives you a lot of things to play with. Then you have, I was talking about sheets and then you have octahedrons, also things like that. These are copper oxide materials. And then you have other carbon materials like graphitic carbon nitride. These are all the conducting materials. Okay. Here also we could say, we could use like a heterostructure and we could demonstrate visible light photocatalysis. But of course, the students went further. They were trying to play around with the composition of these materials, and they observed that actually graphitic carbon nitride not only acts as a conducting material, it also modifies the structure. If you see the picture here below, the bottom, it becomes highly porous. And you have an octahedron, and you have the KiO2 sitting on it, graphene oxide sitting on it. And when you do the in situ synthesis, they become porous structures. Porous advantage is it can actually increase the surface area to a large extent. And apart from that, you get different beautiful structures of kind of shapes also. So originally they will be octahedrons, but afterwards you can see that they grow into, say, kind of star-shaped morphology and things like this by controlling the composition. This is an ongoing work, so I don't have much. So I'll have another small presentation if I have the time to. If not, I'll show you the real applications of what I have used the same material for sensing, catalysis, and biomedical applications. So we have established the expertise for designing and synthesis of materials. They're very generic, so any oxides can be tried. And of course, the way forward is these synthesis routes are generic, and so you can try them for your desired application. So you put them up in small book chapters, all these synthesis routes, and depending on what is your requirement. And this is, I like this statement very much because new ideas lead to new technologies and new technologies demand new materials. So you can actually think of what kind of material you want, you can make those materials. So if you give me 10 minutes, I'll just show you some applications. If I don't have the time,
Yeah, I can take time.
Okay, fine. This is my group in the nanomaterials lab. You help me with this presentation. No, it's the same thing. Let me just go back. No, pen drive. No, don't open it. Don't close it. Open the pen drive.
No.
No, not T. This is G. Oh, this is not the one, but I mean, no presentations. It's not opening. Okay. I got it. Slide. This is a few examples. This is a ceramic material. So this is a cutting determination, but ceramics are supposed to be hard and brittle to break. But if you make the ceramic of nanosecond particles, you can make it machinable. Okay? You are introducing elasticity. So this is one of the properties that you can actually improve in ceramic materials. This is an example of a polymer, it's a plastic. Okay? Here we introduce a very small quantity of nanoparticles. And what that we have improved? We have improved the oxygen retention time. So basically, Oxygen retention is improved in the sense, if you put a blue juice or something in these bottles, after a period of time, you know that it gets sour or it gets bad. Why? Because the juice impacts the oxygen. So if you can prevent oxygen entering the bottle, you can increase the life of whatever contained in that. So that's how the shelf life is increased. Okay, very small particle nanoparticles. So here you got nanoparticles, it's less than 1%. But the advantages or the economic benefits are many. Just a few examples on that. Here you can see on the left hand side here is a zinc oxide nanoparticles. We know that zinc oxide is a sunscreen material. Okay. Previously, when the cricketers used to play, they used to put that on their face. You could see white. That's the other half. But now, the same zinc oxide, when you make it nanoparticles, it is transparent. So you need to put it in the can see. And also, the UV protection is reduced further. Simply because you see the right-hand side bottom, you can see the UV spectrum of the material. Just by changing the size of the bottom particles, the absorption spectrum has changed. And that is what is making it transparent on it. Okay. So, a lot of advantages in the economics part. This is what it is. Okay. And then lots of demand, and it's already there in the market in food processing, in food packaging. Okay. And especially in ice creams, and then you have what I call as food flavors. They are basically nanoparticle capsules, and you introduce the flavors in the capsule. So if you want to eat non-veg, but not eating actually non-veg, you can get that feeling in your mouth that you're eating a non-veg. So this is very, very popular. Then you have ice creams and cakes which are becoming more and more creamy and more fluffy because of these agents which are nanosized capsules. Okay, packaging industry is a long way to go, and it's there. So we increase the life or shelf life of all the food products by different packaging. So suppose you want to package food, it's going to be different. If you want to package fruits or flowers used to have humidity, but you should not allow it to dry, and things like that. So you can actually have different kinds of packaging depending on your product. So a lot of places where nanotechnology has played, it's not just scientific hype, it is there in the market for us to see. Then environmental applications, plenty. I showed you a quick demonstrations. And wastewater treatment and wastewater reclaiming is one major area. Still a long way to go, but still a lot of progress is made. I don't know if you've seen a couple of places, we have this water has been absorbed from the air. Moisture from the air, and it is supplying water. It has been put up in Singapore railway station. And it's actually used for high altitude people where they don't get drinking water. So they actually condense the water from the atmosphere and get drinking water. So there's a lot of nanotechnology intervention in this kind of applications. And energy, I already told you all this. Apart from solar cells, you have batteries. Batteries is going a long way. Even now, the Prime Minister is talking a lot about EVs and batteries and all. Still, the problem is not completely solved because the batteries are very bulky. So they're expecting that nanotechnology will at least reduce the size and make it safer, more than cheaper, safer. Because we are seeing a lot of accidents taking place because of explosion and things like that. So these are all places where it can make a very good impact. A lot of sporting goods are using nanotechnology. You can see all the tennis rackets are all made carbon nanofibers. They're more light, stronger, and things like that. A lot of fabrics. Your clothes are actually, they're making it freeze-proof and sweat-proof and things like that. These are all the products. Then, of course, the air conditioners and the washing machines, they sell. LG is selling nano silver. But of course, what is the nano in that is the question. Nothing is nano, it looks like nano, but silver is supposed to be antibacterial. So they are introducing the nanoparticles in the things so that the air becomes purified. But of course, they tried to put it in the washing machine, but it was withdrawn because the silver in the washing machine is getting leached along with the water. And that is, since it's antibacterial, it will feel in the animals also. So that's going to be harmful to the water bodies and the animals in the water bodies. So that has been banned, and LG had to withdraw that product. So a lot of things that we think are very good, but unless they are proven, it cannot be going into the market. So these are all some of the products. This is, of course, the pen drives or the memories are something which all of us have seen, right? From CDs to the very small. Now you have terabytes and things like that, 1 centimeter by 1 centimeter. That's because of that technology where the storage space has increased in by reducing the size of the things. This is one thing where catalysis has played a role, and it's basically gold nanoparticles in these commodes. And what is the job of the gold nanoparticles? I mentioned it there. They turn the foul-smelling amines into odorless nitrates. So you can actually, and it is there already. It's there in the market, and people are using it also. So I mean, sometimes we think that gold nanoparticles sounds very out of place, but it's doing its job. Then you have all these catalysts, especially in the car exhaust engines and all, where they convert carbon monoxide into less harmful products. And of course, after when you do all these things, you're taking smaller and smaller sizes, you're thinking about the safety. That's when battery things become comes into the picture. Because you are trying to increase the capacity of the batteries by making it smaller. But when you make it smaller, obviously density, temperature is going to become degree centigrade per centimeter square is going to be very, very high. So sometimes it goes so high that it catches fire. So you have to actually address the issue of heat dissipation along with trying to increase in the power also. So all these areas are something. These are kind of better biomarkers, but I talk about functionalization. So these functionalizations are the blue tags, which can be NH2 particles, NH2 molecules, or CO2 molecules, or CO3, which can become biocompatible. So you can talk about a gold nanoparticle attached to a DNA, or a gold nanoparticle attached to a protein, simply because the chemical interaction remains the same, even if it's a living species or non-living species. So you can actually talk about hybrids. And these are all done, and it is nothing new in this. Of course, don't bother. So these are some of the futuristic materials. I told you that ceramic can be made flexible, so can we have a ceramic cloth? Then you have the stem-sensitive glass. I told you about the flavor changing additives. So you can actually change the flavor of the food as you wish. This is kind of a multifunction. It's a Velcro plus a conducting. So you can make on-off switch and does the job of Velcro. This is a NASA project which has very major component of nanotechnology. Basically, all the components are nano-sized materials. So they got the advantage that they could reduce the payload. If we reduce the payload, automatically the required fuel will be reduced. So that becomes more convenient and cost-effective also. Okay, so the nanomaterials are now being used in a lot of our cars also. They're using this quantity as the weight of the car, which makes it more energy efficient. This is something very futuristic, but it is not impossible. What I'm going to tell you is, when your car is moving, okay, I think even now you must be putting in your phone charging and all. As the car is moving, you can charge your mobile. So what does it do? It basically converts kinetic energy to potential energy. So if you can extend it further, as long as you are driving, go on changing a charger battery, on your return journey, you can use the same battery for your car. So basically, it's not impossible, but it is a futuristic car. So that's what it is. Thank you, and we'll just these are some particles. We had made iron oxide particles, and we made them, put them into for protein separation and biomedical.
Thank you very much, madam, for the thought about the vision and the dimension about the nanotechnology towards sustainability. So it's the responsibility of the chairperson to give her impressions about this daily session. After that, we'll have presentation to the speakers. Thank you. Thank you, accepting our invitation and delivering the lecture. Very beautiful. It was wonderful hearing you. Your presentation to the audience and the healthcare attention for full attention. And in advance, truly appreciate your time, madam. You have clearly mentioned about
the engineering, designing, and engineering aspects. It was very much interesting. I think after listening to this, everybody wants to do research in this field only.
Every field is like that.
It was very much refreshing also. So intelligent materials, that's the thing we have mentioned here before. And
they are all there. Everything you are observing, it is there already. It is nothing.
Yeah, everything is there, but we are not observing it. That's the sense. Now you have given a different view of all the things which are very much usual and natural also. We are daily, whatever we are looking at, you have taken a different view of those such things and then dimensions, and then you have evaluated and then neatly presented also. So I think everybody will agree with that. And how processing
to connect with the madam if anybody wants to.
Processing, you have discussed and structure, microstructures, and then how it is differs in application. The structure also, and then tailoring of materials and biomimicry. All these things are very interesting, madam. Very neatly touched upon, and morphological evaluations also have discussed, and very natural. It was interesting to chemistry people as well as the physics also. And the titanium oxide, zinc oxide, aluminum oxide, all these are ordinary components. So here we are doing magic. So band gap alignment, we have this is very interesting. Band gap alignment, we have discussed about it because visible light is very important as well. Visible light in solar cells. I found it very interesting, and I think it will come out and at a cheaper rate also later on for solar users. And light sensitized materials, so the lights we are using, and we do not institutions of those and then applications. Now I think the nanotechnology can devise such properties hereafter, and I think we can extend this to avoid accidents also. Car accidents.
There are many things are there. It's difficult to encounter.
After the lecture, I think we are very much optimistic.
It depends on what is your focus. We are going in that direction.
So public only should go to the research and then ask for what they want. So she is prepared to give it on this nanomaterial scientists are prepared to give this society whatever they want. That's beautiful. Very nice, madam, given me hearing you. And I thank our dean madam for selecting you and then following me. It's a beautiful, wonderful presentation. Thank you very much. And I request the audience we have the madam. If anybody wants to interact with the madam, then you can have interact with one or two we can take. Later on, during this time, you can interact. Everybody can interact. Thank you. Thank you.
Now I request Center Director, Madam, and Chairperson.
University Anavai Karam Vachana guest under the one of the Karavai. So please accept the felicitations.
You don't need to do all of this. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm very happy to give further thanks to the plenary session. Let me express my gratitude to Center Director and the Dean Faculty of Science, Professor Pushpa Chakrapan Madam. Madam, your leadership and guidance and support, we are very thankful to you, Madam. And I would like to thank the Chairperson, Adjunct Professor Dr. Rajni Madam for introducing to the speaker and the session led very nicely. And I'm very grateful To plenary session, keynote speaker, Dr. S. Madaran Madam, your lecture was truly wonderful and it made us think once. Actually, I don't know what is material and how it is made up of. But you clearly explained at the bottom of the outer electron and the outer bond formation to build up the material and also nanoparticles and structure of material, micro and macro at nano level and mechanism of nanoparticles also and ceramic materials, mechanism of the and finally I would like to thank all participants and for your presence and patience. Thank you, Ananda. All of you please join for speaking.
We have only 5 minutes, have tea and come back again to the same room we have taken.